Whoops, I'm muted. Uh, we got the green light and we are live, back on Quantum Leap in 2022, and I'm excited to have my co-host Cory not back with me. And um, let me just cut out a couple of these distractions. And well, how are you doing this new year, Cory? And how's if you don't mind just doing a quick just introduction of you and kind of what's going on with you in this new year.
Hey everyone, Cory and I here, business coach with Take Wing Coaching. This year, we hope to grow our online membership community to up to 200 members, and it's been a good start to the year. We're looking at putting some accountability in place to help us accomplish that goal, and I'm working with a PR person to raise my visibility because it's so easy to just kind of hide out in my home and not do all the writing and other things that I want to get done. And we also have some personal goals that are getting into place. So it's looking to be a good year. How about you, David?
Yeah, well, as you know, I'm working on launching a new program called Rising Star that's going to feature some collaboration with Lyft. So the initial offering is going to be launched on March 1st, and that's essentially a business coaching program. It features, I think there's a lot of people don't know the difference between kind of coaching and actually teaching. So it's going to contain both elements because I think it's important that oftentimes we don't know what we don't know. So I'm going to try to put all these pieces together from the various things that I've learned. And there is going to be a phase 2 that's going to launch June 1st, with more of a content library and additional content. And this is kind of the sister program to Industry Leader, targeted more at the up and comers than industry leaders. I still think a lot of it applies to industry leaders, but in terms of marketing, most people don't join coaching if they're already an industry leader, so to speak, unless it's maybe with Tony Robbins. So I'm excited about pushing this stuff out there, and we'll be talking about it on the show more, and also probably getting into some of these concepts today. So essentially, it's building out a mosaic for your business success based on all the things that you teach, that I've picked up, and that I really think are valuable pieces for people to learn. And I just got to switch that camera view. It wants to leave you on camera. So I did want to just, I was scoping out our show notes for today, and I thought if people are joining this show new, it'd be interesting for us to review the purpose of this show and kind of recap kind of where we've been and where we're going. I did want to use the bulk of the show to talk about what I'm calling a blueprint for business success in 2022. And, again, I've been thinking about this stuff all morning, and I really see how it's really a whole book or a year-long course to go through everything. So I want to just touch on some of those themes. But if you don't mind telling us, and I did give you a heads up about this question, what we've been doing for the past couple of years on this show and what you kind of see this show about. And if you do have any thoughts on where you'd like to take it, I'm interested to hear that as well.
Yeah, well, I think when I tell other people, like, sometimes I approach people to be on the show. You find the bulk of the guests, but there's a few people I approach, and I tell them, I mean, look, we are interviewing people to kind of find out their take on business. This started a lot during the COVID years, of course, in which we're still kind of in the midst of, though things are opening up. And I think there was a lot of take on, like, how are you doing in this environment? What are you doing to stay successful, stay sane, and stay in business? And I think that's always a fascinating question, because those are things that people want to hear. And as the show evolves, we're kind of getting out of that crisis, and who knows what's coming up next. But I like hearing from people about what it is they do to just stay day to day as a business owner and feel like they're confident in that. And of course, a lot of these business owners are solopreneurs, right? They're just doing it alone, or maybe they have one or two employees, and that's the bulk of the people I work with. So I like to hear their stories and how they're faring.
Yeah, great. And I mean, I think the backbone of the show really is the stories from small business owners, people who we know personally and professionally. And, I would like to get some what I call bigger name guests on, kind of business leaders, maybe people like Ivan Meisner or other key folks out there. We're going to work to get him on the show. For those of you who don't know, he's our key mentor and visionary for BNI, which is Cory and I, our organization on small business development. And he's really one of the top business leaders in the whole world. So we'd love to have him on, or other people who are kind of in that same cadre of helping people with success. And, I have a whole kind of slate of people I'm going to be reaching out to, but I still like this kind of 80-20, that we only have, maybe 20% of those kind of bigger names or more national figures or international, because I think it's really about, connect. I just find people connect the best with people who are like them. And these small business owners, they have extraordinary stories, and we've learned, some extraordinary things from, small business owners. Even if they're not necessarily to Ivan's level, they have a lot of the pieces in place that enable them to share powerful things.
Right.
Okay, now I was going to move on to question 2.
Your Google business listing.
Oh. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
Shouldn't have answered. My computer likes to answer my phone now. Technology. Oh, so I'm asking a question of you. I'm sorry about that, dude. It was kind of a surprise. So the concept of the quantum leap has been around for a while. This is something that you've been working on. And can you tell us what this means to you, and why is it a driver for this show?
Yeah, and actually the show isn't related to the NBC special Quantum Leap, which I heard was from the 90s. And, this concept of quantum leap has been around for a long time, and not a lot of people kind of know what it is. It's almost has kind of a folklore about it, but it's really about exponential results that, to get to the moon or to build a rocket ship, it's not kind of, okay, let's just try to turn my car into a rocket ship. It's actually, you need an exponential leap in your performance and your results. So, it's really about kind of working smarter, not working harder. I love that. Every time I read about quantum leap things, and, it's the best succinct description of quantum leap comes from that book U Squared, where, whereas the fly is banging its head against the wall in that hotel outside of Toronto, the Price Pritchard, a business guy, was talking about a true story, using the loss of his life, trying to get out to the outdoors, but then that door is open 10 feet away. And I think we really need to be looking for that door to get to where we want to go, instead of kind of banging our head against the wall. And, I think a quantum leap for most people as business owners is going from this constant grind and struggle to being optimistic about their business and achieving the results that they want with less effort. So I think, it's not only, we're not going to fly everybody to the moon, for example, but if you're happy in your result in your business, that's a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
And what would you say are some of the kind of themes this is almost a 2-part question. Sorry, maybe we should we'll move on from the show. And I'd just like to see kind of if you can sum up kind of what actually leads to business success. And I know you have a powerful story, and we all have our story, but how do you get started on that path, and what does that path look like to business success? Say you're a pivoting business owner, or maybe you're getting into a brand new field, starting a business and marketing or whatever it may be.
Well, I do think it's going to be a little bit of a theme of the show too, or at least I bring that to the table, and I know you believe in it too. I mean, for me, it's all about vision, and I think that success can come from money. It can come from having great clients. It can come from the lifestyle. It's really, what is it that you want it to be? And if you don't know, then you might achieve success in some ways, but it may not be truly successful for you. And so my key to success, as I always say, is to have that big vision, and a written one. Like, what does this business look like in 3 to 5 years? What does my life look like around this business and even outside the business? And to create that bigger and bigger vision, because that helps overcome the obstacles that get in the way of our success. And those things come up. I just had an accident a couple months ago, and that put me in a pretty big bind. And there's been medical expenses and all kinds of things that are coming up. And it wasn't as bad as it could be, fortunately, and it didn't stop me really from working as much. But because I have this big vision, it just felt like I was continually moving forward anyway, even as some obstacles came up. And so that's, to me, is where I work with my clients, is creating that big vision. And then I love seeing them successful with that. The more they have, the more they're just thrilled to keep moving forward.
Yeah. And, I think that brings up this issue of these kind of visionary greats, like the titans of business versus normal business owners, that, those folks are so advanced in where they are and what they do with their business, that a lot of it's not as relevant to like the average business owner that is trying to get from where they are to maybe a $200,000 or $400,000 business. So that's why I love this concept of great spokespeople for small business on this show. And
Yeah.
you put it so well about some of those key concepts that we're going to talk about. And that kind of brings us to our next question about, well, I'll just go into it because I already kind of alluded to it, where to start for blueprint for business success in 2022. And I think this is such a important concept about, it's almost overwhelming. And you'll say, a lot of people say, refer you a book, or, okay, you just have to do something different and then you're going to get different results. I did hear this great question earlier that is just to think about for a second. What is the primary cause of your results? And just let that sit. And really, the primary cause of our results is us. So really, if we're not getting the results that we want, we have to kind of start with ourselves. And we have this whole system that, Bob Proctor's worked through with my business coach, that you work with on Lyft. But I think it really starts with the acknowledgement that we actually have to change. We have to find a different system that works. It's, success is not really a destination. It's an ongoing process to set up this, this spark that creates this ongoing process of personal growth, business growth, and change that is going to get you to on the path to where somebody like Ivan Meisner is, or, Steve Jobs got to. That the most difficult part is, kind of getting out of the atmosphere, so to speak. So, and that's what I love about what you and Gail have done with Lyft, because you actually have a module in there that, I don't know if it's still termed that, but it's called Flight Plan. If you don't mind telling us about, Flight Plan, because I think that's really the blueprint of, if you're starting out with your business, of where you want to start.
Yeah, and I would say it's not even necessarily where you'd want to start out, but it could be, I've been doing this for a while, but now I really want to get clear on where I'm going with it. And the idea behind Flight Plan is we took, years of the work that we did with other coaches, we did our certifications, and we developed a program really around the idea that, there's business plans, which are like, okay, what are my numbers going to look like? Who are my clients? What is my SWOT analysis? But we wanted to throw in something to be more in tune with who the person is. What is the lifestyle that they want to create from this business? What is it supporting? And where does it come from? Like, who am I, truly serving? Why am I doing this thing? Why am I spending this day after day doing this work, taking these risks, and putting myself out there? So our flight plan really goes into the why of the business, the purpose, core values, the vision, and then gets into the meat of how to run the business operation. So we have the individual's connection to the business, as well as how the business is going to operate. And I believe that's important, because it's easy to just get discouraged. There's a lot that's going on in the world right now, and sometimes it's easy to just like shut down because there's so much going on. But when we're really connected to what we do, it just keeps moving forward. We find a way over those obstacles. And that's what our goal behind Flight Plan was, right? It's a plan. It's like, how am I going to fly? And as you can see, our take wing and soar is part of our motto.
Yeah, and I know in my Rising Star program, I'm looking over the key points, and over half of it is all based on the stuff that you teach in Lift or some version. Almost 80% of it is at least some version of it. And I'll just summarize a few things because I know there's so much content in Lift, but really, some of the most important things are your goals, your purpose, your vision, and your values. And let's recap on those in a second. But I think, a lot of it really comes down to connection, that you need an ongoing way to be connected to other business owners. And that's BNI. That's that referral strategy that is the most powerful business development tool out there, and something that not a lot of people know how to utilize. That you actually need a plan for that, and kind of you can get that by going to BNI. But I'd like to touch on that, the discovery of your why, which is such a crucial thing, because I think your why is what powers you towards your goal, combined with your purpose and your vision. And you have a unique process in Lyft for kind of finding this why that I haven't seen anywhere else. Same with core values. So this is the kind of fuel that powers you to your goal, and why it's so important that you work on it first. And I think some of the most powerful segments that you have in Lyft are those. There's a lot of other great stuff, advanced stuff there, but you got to really start with kind of finding that powerhouse for what's going to drive you forward. And that's your goals, your purpose, your vision. There's something called a mission statement, your ideal client that you got to flesh out. And these are all questions that you always have on the top of your tongue as you're coaching somebody, that are so ingrained. You also really need a definite plan. The source of this is that Think and Grow Rich book, which you not only have to have this kind of hazy vision of where you want to go, but you need to develop a definite plan of how you're going to get there. And this is, the plans to build the rocket ship, or the map of how you're going to, sail your boat wherever you're going. On marketing strategy and plan. A couple other three things that I call the process of breaking through the terror barrier. And this is really one of the most important things that, I don't want to we're almost, we only have a bit more time today, so I don't want to talk about that, except for you have to keep an eye on all of these things, because they can hold you back. The last two things are affirmations and daily practice. So I was just going to let you react to that, and sorry to go over everything, but that's basically the blueprint in large part. There's some other things, give or take, but it's really a question of how do you get started on those things? How do you why is it important? And I think you really need a coach. You need somebody like you or me to get them started on the path, but you also need a lot of that institutional knowledge that you have in Lyft, or a platform like Lyft.
And I think it helps to have a coach. Gail and I have coaches. We have coaches. I know you have coaches, and they keep us on track. They point out the things that we're not seeing. I give an analogy. I've been a motorcycle rider since I was 16. I've been on all kinds of bikes. I've been on all kinds of roads. I've been, a commuter. I've done, mountains. I've done tours, all kinds of things. And I love riding. And I kind of put it off for the last few years. I don't have a motorcycle, and I plan to get one this year. And I need to renew my license. And to renew my license, I need to take a test. And so I decided to do the California motorcycle safety course. And one of the things they say is you've got to be coachable through this program. So I get on the course, and I'm with a bunch of beginners, and some of them have done dirt biking and stuff. And I just said, okay, I'm just here to soak up like a sponge. You tell me, what I'm doing. And I'll tell you, they taught us a lot of things that I didn't know. It's called total control. It's a whole method about riding. And, there was some mistakes that I made, and there's, they're pointing out all the things that I could be doing better. And, I feel like, I can get on a bike and ride anywhere. And now, because of this coaching, and I'll probably take it to another level and do their intermediate and advanced programs, I'm going to be a better and better rider. And that keeps me safe and confident that I can do even more as a motorcyclist and be with groups. And it's the same in business. We may be really good at what we do, and we may be humming along, but then something trips us up. And coaches can show us where we're making, those mistakes. And right now I'm working with somebody who is showing me how my writing isn't really lifting my message the way everybody says, oh, this is good writing, but now I've got somebody who's like, this is how you can do it a lot better. And it is kind of keeping me challenged to write better and then put that stuff out there. And so even on your Rising Star program, I think that's awesome, because that helps people create that visibility that, we don't really do that in Flight Plan. We just, lay the foundation for, being really confident in your business, but then putting yourself out there, that's a whole nother game. And it goes to that terror barrier, imposter syndrome, all kinds of things that you can help people with and feel like they're comfortable as they start putting themselves out to becoming a be seen expert in their business.
Yeah, and I'll just add that I think that's why you also need a coach too, because everybody starts in different place. And that, given that this mosaic of success, that formula is hugely complicated. I've been studying it for 3 or 4 years solid, and I'm finally getting my arms around it, but I'm not quite there to being able to teach all of it yet. But people just getting started, um, the coach can really pinpoint where they're stuck. Maybe they have to be coachable. They're probably not going to get a coach if they're not coachable. So there's those first key steps that are so critical, say the first 2 or 3 months of coaching, because you're going to hit that something, the terror barrier or whatever it is, and you're going to have a coach to get through that. And that's why I think that really, I'm excited about the curated version of Lyft to kind of keep people going through that, and what I'm going to offer. I did want to, since we have about 5 more minutes, jump to question number 9, if you don't mind. And this is actually something I'm going to want to spend a lot of time on in 2022. I just finished my coaching programs, and I'm going to go back to this public speaking. But I know you've put a lot of work into this, and you continue to. But could you tell me what the potential is for public speaking to build your brand and business as an entrepreneur, and why somebody might want to consider that as a way to build their brand and business?
Yeah, I think that if you have a business in which you're selling expertise and doing some sort of coaching, consulting, training, public speaking is really valuable to getting your message out there, because you're likely to be speaking to, well, ideally you'd be speaking to your audiences, though I do recommend getting the practice of speaking to a lot of different people, and you never know who will connect you to to who. But yeah, Gail and I were actually talking about this last night. If you're a plumber or in some sort of service profession, public speaking might be okay for your business, but you'd probably be looking at other ways of marketing. But as somebody who's really working with people on their mindset, their ideas, their business, speaking allows us to present our knowledge, our expertise, and who we are as a person to the people who might hire us as professionals or put us on other stages. And some people, I do find that a lot of coaches really do like public speaking, and some want to be keynote speakers. They have a story to tell and a message to share. So it's a great way to share a message with a larger audience. And even in BNI, I've been speaking for years and years and years and years on leadership. I would not necessarily do that as a business, but I really enjoy what I have learned in BNI as a leader, and what I've learned from other people like Ivan and Don and Mike and so many others, and distilling that down and bringing it to chapter members and sharing that. So it's really a way for us to share our knowledge with a larger body of people. Yeah, so it's great for business, and it's also, I think, it just feeds the soul.
Yeah, I heard the anecdote of William James, the father of psychology, that he actually didn't start collecting a paycheck until he was 50, and he discovered teaching. And then it took him that long to discover what he really liked to do. And I think there is no greater joy than to be able to share knowledge. And I think you're right. I didn't even think about that a a lot of professions, it makes no sense to publicly speak. But maybe if you want to teach plumbing or something, you can develop a course on it, to kind of be that visionary in the field. But
Well, even then, we see. I love BNI because it gives a platform, and if you're a director, you get to speak to chapters. And some of our best directors are people in service. They're in roofing or other things, and it does bring them business, right? They're not talking about their business, but when you see a leader, you're like, I want to hire that person because I know they're going to do a good job for me. So it can be a valuable tool, even just local public speaking for a service professional who wants to be seen not just as an expert in their business, but as a reliable high quality professional that people want to hire for their big projects.
Yeah, that's the beauty of BNI too, is everybody becomes a great public speaker, or at least like decent enough. I think David Zurin from our chapter is another good example that he's a great public speaker, and he's a painter, and he's going to do the YouTube channel. So you have people kind of, it can be a second career almost to be a spokesperson or a presenter. And we are just about at time, but I'm going to actually turn this question around on you, and maybe I can make a few notes on it too. But what actions can entrepreneurs or business owners take today or this week to dramatically step up their business performance, or at least get them on the path to improve performance and accomplishing their business goals in 2022? Oh, you're muted.
I mean, the first step, to accomplishing a goal is like, what is the purpose of this goal? Why do I want to accomplish this? What is this going to do for me? What is a reward? What happens if I don't accomplish it? Write these things down and start laying out an action plan. That is, if it's not, a dream without a vision that's not written down is just a dream. And a goal that's not written down is also pretty much just a dream. So having it written down and start putting into place the pieces that will make it happen are important. And of course, we can go much deeper into that on Lift and all the tools we have for that, and also the tools that you have, David.
Great. I think the most important thing is to ask for help, or to find a group or a person or a coach who you connect with who can guide you, because that, you can do it on your own, but it might take you 10 years. I think if you get a coach, it can take you a year or two. I know Elon Musk has said, well, if you say that's going to take me 5 years to do that, that'll take you 5 years. But if you say 6 months, you might be able to get it done in 6 months. So I really think this concept of acceleration is huge. And I think really finding those resources that are going to propel you to your goal. And that's why we're here on this show. And I think we'll leave it there for today, because we have our guest, Jim, who's actually going to continue this conversation in the next segment. So we'll be rejoining you momentarily. And David and Cory signing off for this first segment of Quantum Leap in 2022. Thank you.